Hi guys, good afternoon. We are coming to you live from Pearl Academy. My name is Srishti Bajaj. I'm the area head for product and lifestyle design.
Hi, and I'm Nidhip Mehta. I'm the head of the School of Design. Srishti and I work together. Specifically, Srishti works in the product and lifestyle department, and I oversee all of our design departments.
So the idea of this conversation today is just to kind of get you guys to be a little bit more familiar with what product and lifestyle is about, what do we do here, and really there's no other way to begin but just kind of talk about it. So actually, if you can see behind us, this is coming from our workshop, and primarily for a product designer, whether it's industrial design or accessories, it's about making things. So at Pearl, we offer two pathways. One is in industrial design and the other is in accessory design.
Right.
Both have their own sort of specific areas of focus. And we're going to take a minute to quickly tell you about what both of these areas are about. This is often something that most people confuse
Exactly,
about, right?
and maybe you can use me as an example, because I'm an architect by training. I wasn't trained as a product designer, and I know you were, and as an accessory designer. So why don't you use me as a bouncing ball?
So I think the first thing is that product designers usually work with hard material. We don't do textiles or clothing. So let's say you are pursuing accessory design, and you would be working on things that are personalized accessory products. So for example, a watch, a sunglass or a spectacle, maybe a luggage like a VIP or a Samsonite, or you might even design tableware, whether it's precious metal or whether it's in wood. So a whole lot of material, but very, very focused on products that shape lifestyle for an individual.
Would an example be like cell phone cases, as simple as that?
Yeah,
the
so
kind of things that you buy at the airport even sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. So I mean, there's a huge space to personalize these things. So depending on what trends are going on. So these days you're looking at amazing 3D printed surfaces that have been personalized and customized to individuals. Watches that can be customized. You know, it could be something from a digital watch to a mechanical watch. Imagine anything from a small tabletop platter to a side lamp that accessorizes or accentuates the place. Sometimes
there's this feeling that people think that maybe accessory design is mostly like about fashion accessories or like or home decor type of things, but it's not. It can be very precise also, and high tech as well, isn't it?
And I'm going to take the example of a watch again. I mean, to be able to design a watch, you need to know what the dimension of the case is, how the crown is going to fit, you know, how the needle moves, how the mechanism moves, how the strap will work. If you're, let's say, doing it in metal, so, you know, how do the links work? So it is a lot about understanding how different materials behave, but also about how people are going to wear the watch. So things like ergonomics, things like comfort, things like longevity of a watch, apart from the style, are very, very crucial.
And I think especially now, I mean, the idea of a watch is also changing. I mean, people are still wearing traditional watches, but I'm not right now because my strap just broke this morning.
Bring it to the workshop.
Yeah, I'll bring it to get it fixed. But yeah, I mean, the idea of a watch is changing. It does I mean, like, you know, Apple makes a watch, all these smart watches that are there. They do so many things. They read your, you know, pulse or blood pressure and all that. So, but yet it still has to be design. You know, fashionable. It still has to be something you want to wear every day. It doesn't want to look like a big hunk of technology on your wrist, right? It still has to go with your clothing that you're wearing.
I think what the keen trend that's coming in today is that there is going to be technology. We're surrounded by technology. So product designers come into place where they make technology accessible. So how do you bring technology into your everyday life without disrupting it, without your everyday becoming about how you code a watch? You know, so a product designer will work with a coder to design that watch. All you have to do is look at a seamless function and say, okay, tell me the time, tell me the temperature, what's the humidity. So it's absolutely seamless. The user interaction, all of that has to be embedded into that.
And the user interaction is the thing that makes it design and not engineering, right? I mean, although engineers obviously make things for people also, but it's very focused on the technical capabilities, like getting a battery to fit in a, you know, that certain amount of space and, you know, lasting a certain amount of time. But ultimately, the product designer is the one that says that listen, this has to be attractive to people, this has to be wearable, it has to be comfortable, it has to be something that I want to do, it's something that I need. You know, maybe it's something that I don't even know that I need.
What's interesting is that something like a watch that used, like if I look at my parents, they used to buy one watch and that used to last them like 20 years. You know, now people might have 10 watches.
Right.
And so it's become a lifestyle product. It's no longer just you know, mechanical watch. And I think that's also how it differs from industrial design, because in industrial design we're looking at maybe one piece or an object that has to last for a long time. So maybe a cell phone, for example. You don't carry 10 cell phones while you might have 10 bags. Right. You know, you would have one refrigerator in your house that everybody uses, so it has to be universally designed, industrially manufactured. So the scales of production are very different. The application is different. I mean, a fridge, although you can style it a little bit, but you still don't find variations. Like if my room is in a certain way, I will, you know, design the fridge differently.
Or if it happens at the beginning level, where you maybe the fridge matches with your cabinetry or that sort of thing, but it's not something you change all the time.
I mean, it has to. There are certain standard specifications for an industrial product that we have to follow. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, fridge is just an example, but today your furniture pieces, your lighting are part of industrial design, and some of the interesting products that our students have been doing thus far, despite having a huge bandwidth in terms of product design. There's certain focuses that we're looking at when we teach. So you've looked at some of the projects this year.
Yeah, and you know, so I was sitting in your jury about a month back, and what struck me, and you know, I know your students, and I mean they're also my students, but what struck me is how much the students, you know, we give them a lot of leeway in order to, you know, what kind of a product they want to design, like for their final projects, because everything is a product, and to decide, okay, what is the thing that I want to tackle? What is the new thing that I want to create? Because we push that newness, right? We push something that we don't want them to make something which has been done before in the final project.
We need them to innovate. I mean, they're going to be designers that step into the world that's already sort of crowded with products. So how do you differentiate yourself?
So so absolutely. I mean, so I saw some of the things that I saw were not even just, in fact, products. They were like entire systems. You know, so for example, there's a student, and I know you know who I'm talking about, Shubi, who had a jury, which her final project was about creating a system to dispose of, menstrual waste, menstrual pads, which, first of all, to tackle something like that in our society right now says a lot about where we stand. You know, like we are dealing with women's issues, we are dealing with issues that may not have been dealt with before, which maybe we were shy, but they are real problems in our society. And she was trying to figure out a way in which to dispose of those things, which in a way that it still gives dignity to the user, to the person who has to carry that waste, because there's a lot of social stigma involved, obviously, with menstruation. But it's an important thing. So what struck me about her project, and it was a wonderful project, she came up with this idea, and obviously it's still in progress. It's still evolving, but I think what struck me was how much when we talked about when we gave her feedback about how much her project was, you know, really like something important, I mean, she was so overwhelmed by it. I think through the 6 months that she was working on that project, maybe at that moment, she finally felt a feeling of, maybe she felt it all along, but a realization hit her that, wow, what is the impact of this? This is something I really should be doing. I think up until her final year, she maybe still was doubtful that, hey, could this be a thing? Is this a product design, you know, category? And it was completely, how should I say, justified and validated by and not just by us, obviously, by the people who were there, external industry members who were there and gave her some good feedback.
Yeah, I think her project is a classic example of how today I think product design is transitioning boundaries. You know, it's no longer about just the product, but how a product within a certain context or environment or ecosystem has to exist. I mean, we are living in a world where we know what the reality of the environment is today. So we have to make sure we train product designers to be extremely conscious of both the ecological and the social impact. So it leads to a lot of interesting conversations in the classroom. We bring them a lot of live projects. We take them out to industries that are doing cutting edge, interesting work, so that it triggers their mind. You know, they're able to think beyond what's already happening, and that's a very, very important aspect of just design education that we try to bring into the classroom. And you know, I kind of feel proud because I think so far we've been successful.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think it's successful. Again, I get to the point where a student who usually comes into our course has some inkling or some idea of what product design may be, that they you know like to tinker with things, they like to make things, or they've fooled around with taking things apart and putting them back together. They're interested in
broken
how things work.
That's absolutely okay.
And I think maybe in the beginning they're not so. Most of them are maybe not so aware at that time what impact they can actually have with the kind of knowledge that they're getting. And then by the time they graduate and you see the kind of things that the students decide to tackle, and through I won't say that, I mean, we certainly expose them to many things, but on their own they decide that, you know, I'm going to design a product you know, for this market or that market, which helps people. Even products which aren't necessarily what we would say socially conscious, but are, you know, really things that our society needs right now, you know, luxury products. People have a lot of income, disposable income these days, so people are spending a lot of money on washing machines, dryers, you know. So I grew up in America where a dryer was part of every household. You had a washing machine and you had a drying machine. And in India, when we moved here, you didn't it wasn't common to have a drying machine because you said, well, you know what, you can just hang things on the sunlight. India is such a hot country. But now more and more people have a dryer because the quality of the clothes when they come out of a dryer are soft and nice and, you know, easier to fold and easier to iron. So, and people are willing to spend it, you know. So I think that's what's impressive is that given the opportunities to say that to students that, listen, you can design pretty much anything. You're given the basic design education of how things work, how something fits in your hand, how you sit in something, you know, the human aspect of it. How they can take that and then think, okay, well, there's more than one human, you know, there's many, many types of humans, and each of them have different types of needs. Some are universal, like you said, a refrigerator is going to be somewhat universal, and then a watch is going to be extremely personal. So I think that's great. I know that it causes a lot of sometimes doubt in the mind of students, like, oh my God, there's so much I can do, what should I do? But I think the point is that they should think, well, who they are, where they're from, where they come from, you know. I'll give you another example. I'm sorry, but you know, there's a student who I saw in our admission process this year, who already seemed to have an idea of what he wanted to do. He wanted to do products that were going to help his you know, this town where he comes from. He comes from a small town in MP, and he wanted to do things that was going to help his neighborhood, his environment. So I thought, wow, this guy's already thinking, you know, like how he's going to make products to help people. So I thought that was amazing. I
think we've had students who've done a wide variety of work, and I just wanted to bring, because we were talking about the chair, I was thinking about Radhya's project. So he is currently working with Accenture, but his project was looking at a chair for traditional retail outlets in Old Delhi. So he did a lot of research, going and speaking to people, looking at how they sit, how they lean on their old couches, how they want to sort of relax back and look at things. So it's not about just making a piece of furniture or a product. It's also it is about where that product is going to be situated. I mean, making a chair for somebody sitting in a mall versus making a chair for somebody in a traditional retail in Old Delhi kind of a place where you have, you know, low seating and you have to sort of have hundreds of customers at the same time. So that was an interesting project, and he was also part of the WOBI scholarship,
World of Business,
World of Business. International, I'm forgetting the name of the competition.
But yeah, it was an international selection, and he was chosen to represent Pearl Academy. I think in New York.
In New York, he was sent, and I think just his expectation of what design could bring to a global platform, I think that was his biggest takeaway. And now, working with Accenture, he's working with a team of multidisciplinary designers. He's working with other fields like communication and fashion designers, but contributing as a product designer. We've had students who are working with Godrej, who are doing all kinds of modular furniture. We've had students go to Pepper Fry, which is a completely different space because you're looking at
Yeah.
an online model of product assessment. So we've had quite a few interesting job picks for students.
And I think what's interesting about it is, especially in Aradhya's case, and he's gone to Accenture, is that his product was very much Indian. You
Yeah.
know, like it's a global understanding of design, but his project is definitely
Local
looking at
context.
a local Indian
Yeah.
context. And I think Accenture is a company that has hundreds of thousands of employees, the largest consulting firm in the world.
Yeah.
They're in India. Why? Because they want to make products in India for India, and I think I assume that they would have taken him, and they've taken several of our students because they are interested in the fact that our students are able to kind of juggle between global context and a local context. People like Godrej also, which is one of the most well-known Indian brands, they've taken our students, and I think it's really says a lot about what we do. Is that what we don't want? We don't want to create a bunch of students who are just going to be shipped abroad, and just work for Sony and all these other companies in America or the UK. We want students who are also going to. I mean, yeah, there will be those students as well, but there will be students who are willing to stay here and work in India for Indian context. I mean, there's a Make in India campaign going on right now, as you know. I almost think it should be a Design in India campaign because we do make things in India already.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think that the next. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the next, big thing in digital communication, like an iPhone or whatever, is actually designed in this country because the need for it is much higher here. And I absolutely think that somebody out there who's watching this may be the person who is going to work on that. And I think that's an amazing thing.
I feel like for product design today in India, there's such a huge demand.
Yeah.
I mean, we have companies like IKEA, Steelcase, Samsung. All of these companies are today coming into India, obviously because they see the market.
Yeah.
And they're going to need designers to create for that market because I cannot expect somebody who has lived outside to suddenly come in and become a designer for a company designing for Indian users, because Indian users are complex.
Yeah.
We have our own quirks and craziness, and you need to be able to understand the cultural nuance. And I think they're starting to recognize that. And today, the demand for product designers, I think even from 5 years ago, has become threefold, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger.
We were talking remember we were talking to the country head of the retail business of IKEA
yeah.
the other day, and he was telling us that in order to, IKEA is a huge brand. I mean, everybody knows, and it's a pretty solid brand.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they're all about. And he was telling us that in order to open their first store in India, they went through a huge amount of research by going into Indian homes.
Yeah.
And seeing how people behave. I think he said hundreds of homes they went into to understand what the Indian context is, because how Indians use furniture is not how other people use furniture.
No.
They may love to buy IKEA products because IKEA products are modular and so on, but the Indian culture is so different that they wanted to make sure that they were doing the right thing, and they're coming into India like full bore. So. That says a lot about, as you said, what the potential is in this country for product design and all kinds of design, obviously, but particularly product and lifestyle. And lifestyle is one of the key things, because lifestyle, it's such a weird word to use to describe Indian culture, because there's so many different lifestyles. From one metro to the next, from one village to the next, the lifestyle completely changes.
Yeah.
And so lifestyle is something that you're constantly evolving and constantly learning about. Oh, well, this is how these people live. This is how these people live. And I'm not saying that money is the only thing that creates lifestyle, because the people are making more money these days. But it certainly gives more opportunity. And what's also happening is that people are becoming more aware of different types of things.
Absolutely.
The regional arts, the regional crafts, the regional variations of how people live. Everybody, our country was always diverse, but it's mixing much more than it used to.
I think what I think I find surprising about design today is that I see many more design entrepreneurs as well. I mean, the number of independent design brands, young designers that have started in the last 2-3 years is phenomenal. And if you go out to a design exhibit today, you will see at least half of them are young design entrepreneurs who've finished their undergrad and now are exploring starting businesses of their own. And I think that, like you said, made in India or design in India, I think the potential is huge. And what we are also seeing is that there's an interest from the international market also. So something, for something that is tangibly India and a little less kitsch, but like a new definition of more sophisticated Indian design. And I think it's starting to now permeate a lot more when we look at products in the market. So I know we're getting a little focused on the design aspect, but I also want to bring us back to just giving you a little bit of heads up of what we are teaching you in the classroom. So what happens is that your first year is, of course, a foundation, which is common. In the second year of your studies, which is your first year of specialization, is when you get the fundamentals of design. So things like, how do you do research? You know? How do you explore materials? So you'll be working in the workshop, turning wood or using the welding machine, the laser cutter, you know, learning how to get a handle on material, how to manipulate it.
Ergonomics, the human body, how it functions.
And how do you actually make an object, you know? What embodies an object, the story an object tells. So these are the fundamentals that all students will learn. 3D softwares,
that's very important.
SketchUp, and I think CAD is no longer as relevant today, but you know, Rhinoceros or Alias and all these other new 3D modeling softwares that are coming into the picture. We teach you all of that. Then from there, once you've had a base, and I think that also allows students to figure out what they're interested in. I find that when a student starts, they may not always know what they want to specialize in.
Most of them don't, in fact, because it is something that you haven't really done too much in schooling, you know, like there isn't much of that exposure. So we want the students to understand exactly what it is they're getting into.
And after the second year, then students know very, very clearly whether they want industrial design or accessories. So in the third year, they sort of choose their own pathways and learn things like, if you're an industrial design pathway, you learn things like systems thinking, you learn large-scale manufacturing, you learn interactive products, so IoT essentially. If you're, for example, on the other hand, doing accessory pathway, you'll be introduced to how to actually predict trends, not just follow them. Small-scale manufacturing, you will learn about how to bring mixed materials and bring that aesthetic and precision, because for lifestyle products that's very, very crucial. And both sort of go parallelly. So, and you can always learn from each other because you'll be sitting with your peers in the next room.
I think that's the critical thing, is that we designed the curriculum so that it's not a divergent pathway, meaning that it doesn't mean that if you've chosen accessory design, then you'll never ever see anything in industrial design ever again. No, it's not. That's not the way that we're doing it. We're trying to make it so that there is a constant feedback between each other. That there is a sharing of knowledge, because many of these things are over. I mean, like a watch is a good example of something which is an accessory and industrial in many ways. So you may have to go back and forth to decide where you think. And that's the key, is that a student should be deciding that, not an administrator like me, not a faculty, who comes and says that, well, to be a product designer, you must do this, and there's only one way of doing it. No, there's actually many, many ways. I would say almost infinite ways of doing it, and we want the student to figure out what these different ways are, so that they can say, okay, well, you know what worked for this guy is not going to work for me. I kind of have this pathway that I want to go. I want to make it my own way. I want to take this class. I want to do this type of internship. I want to do this type of a project. And I think we want the students to make that decision. We will absolutely guide the student to make that decision, but we want the student to make that decision because I firmly believe, and this is what I think is very important, I firmly believe that a good institution, a good college, is one that doesn't impose upon the student the sense of that there's one way or that there's only one way to do it. Even from terms of how, the final way that you can graduate from a college. not to put too fine a point on it, but the way that you, at Pearl Academy, the way that there's multiple ways at which you can get even a validation, a quote degree or diploma. I mean, you get a diploma, you can go abroad and do your final abroad, a year abroad, and you can get an internationally recognized degree, which allows you to do a master's anywhere in the world. And you can also pursue simultaneously in IGNOU with the agreement that we have with IGNOU, so you can do a degree through correspondence, so that you can get an Indian recognized degree also in case you want to study further in India as well. So, and not everybody wants to do the same thing. And I think that if, you know, an institution that maybe offers just one pathway to a student, in my opinion, I mean, not necessarily, but I think that institution is limiting what a student eventually wants to do, because we're finding now that it's all about the student choice. So if you give the student different opportunities and say that, listen, you can study abroad after you graduate, you can do your final year abroad, you know, if you don't want to wait until your master's, if you want to do it online, you can do that also, your final year. If you want to work for a large company, then the type of classes you take are more towards the large industrial side. If you want to do entrepreneurship or do a craft-based you know, a company that you want to work for, that opportunity is there too. And I think the key is that it's guided.
It is guided.
Right? We have faculty from all of these different sectors who have done all these things. You have studied abroad, I've studied abroad, you've studied in India, I've studied in India. You know, all of the people that we work with have all these different experiences that we can share and make sure that the students are guided right. You know, and say that, listen, it's not just, you're not just left on your own. You make a decision based upon what your personal feeling is, your intuition is, and let us tell you whether or not that's right for you or not. You know, maybe we know how you are, what kind of a student you are, how your skills are going to develop, so maybe we can suggest to you that do this or do that.
I think what I'd like to also mention is that I've taught in other institutes as well, but what I found that we are able to do really well is manage that mentoring with the student. I think the time that a faculty spends here, or different faculty spend here with the student, is perhaps the most I've seen in all colleges. And I think the students really, really appreciate that, because I think it's almost like for them to have that guiding voice. Because I think a lot of students, especially when they're doing undergrad, are, like we were looking at Shubhi's example, very unsure, and taking a risk is a big deal. And I think the support that the faculty give you goes a long way in building that confidence up. And I think that's a crucial point in the way we've created our curriculum and our pedagogy, to essentially facilitate how a student wants to develop their design path or their career. And that's very critical.
When we get feedback from students who graduate from us and we ask them, what are the things that you are going to miss the most about college? You know, we have a great, a workshop here, we call it Makerspace. None of them have ever said that it's the workshop that I remember the most. They say it's the faculty that I remember the most. It was the faculty that guided me and pushed me, and so therefore we put a lot of emphasis on getting the right teachers who can act as guides and really push those people. So absolutely, I mean, you're right, our focus is primarily on that. We do have the infrastructure, obviously. We have wonderful campuses. We have great workshops where people can learn. We have great opportunities for students to go abroad and so on. But I think the key thing is, do you have good mentors who are there?
Yeah. I think it changes the way you perceive design and world. I'm going to, quickly segue here to a question that I've received from Anirudh. Thank you, Anirudh. He asks whether he's done BTech in mechanical engineering, and then can I do post-graduation in product design? Anirudh, you can absolutely do a post-graduation in product design, and I think a lot of mechanical designers are choosing that path. We don't yet offer.
Yeah, we don't offer it yet. I say yet. We don't offer a postgrad yet, but it may be somewhere in the future. But right now, our course in product design is an undergraduate course. So, you also get instances where a student is very, very passionate and they're willing to do another undergrad. So I think both options are open to you. I mean, we have faculty who've done mechanical engineering and then industrial design. We've got faculty who've done product design and accessory design. We've got faculty who've sort of focused on craft. So I think in terms of design also, it's really interesting how different mixes are coming together. So you really have to figure out what works for you. If, for example, if you're really passionate about design, product design, and you don't mind pursuing it
as an undergrad, you can definitely apply to us. But we hope that we can start a postgrad soon enough.
Soon on Sunday,
Soon. So thank you for that question. I think we need to, we have a few more minutes.
Sure.
And I was just kind of wondering if we can also talk about how we make sure that within product design, but also within School of Design, there's integration.
Oh yeah. So that's something that I think is very important. Srishti, you're correct me if I'm wrong, trained as an accessory designer. You've done product, and you've studied also your master's in design, product design, industrial design. You've done in your own practice product design, but you've also done graphic design. You've also done design research. You've done many different things. Most designers that I know are like that. Most designers come in through one aspect of design, they dabble in other parts of, and dabble maybe is the wrong word because it's not superficial, it's you really do it. And most designers are that way, and we recognize that, we realize that even if you've come into a course like product design, you would have interest in illustration and drawing and film and representation, in technology, in interaction. Product design and industrial design, I should say, and interaction design are actually quite closely related. So we have also created a curriculum which allows that integration to happen, so that students can come into one course and look at other courses and see what it is, how they can collaborate. Now, there's many ways that you can collaborate. Either you can, as an elective, take some of the courses that some of the subjects that we have designed as electives. They can take that alongside with other students from other disciplines. You can also do your project as a collaborative project with another student from another discipline, and you do it together.
Like part of the Future Lab thing.
Right, so we have that also. So there's a lot of words that talk about this right now. You probably hear the words interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. Those are all many different words to describe somewhat the same thing, but they're all very specific. So there's, you yourself taking on and learning about another discipline, and then the other way is for you to also work with someone who is in another discipline and work together on a project. So those type of things are what we want to encourage and increase with what our students are doing.
I think I'd also like to add that that's a formal way of doing it. But I think what anybody would appreciate is that because we have all the different verticals in the same, housed in the same place, it allows for a lot of informal interaction with students from other departments. So you might be sitting and having lunch with a communication designer or a student from fashion or from media, and it leads to interesting projects. And I think we expect students to seek those opportunities of interaction and find new ways of developing their own work, and whether it's collaboration, whether it's collaborating with people within Pearl and other students, or collaborating with people outside. It could be with an NGO, it could be with an engineer, depending on the kind of projects you want to do. Just to give you an example, we had a student here, Ayushi, who for her final project was developing shopping experience for people who are septuagenarians and octogenarians, or 70 or 80-year-old, who find it very difficult to carry groceries and shop for groceries because things get heavy. So she designed kind of like a Ferris wheel kind of a mechanism that moves depending on what you want. And for the entire project, she actually collaborated with an engineer. And they hope to take it forward and actually take it to retailers like Reliance and say, hey, would you like to implement something like this in your shop, in your retail stores? So there are many different avenues of collaboration. So we're expecting somebody who comes to us to be fearless, I think, because design, I think, requires that sort of desire to go forward and seek the new. So you need to be a risk taker. You need to be somebody who wants to explore different things. Try things that have never been tried. Even if things blow up in your face, we'd say try again. Because sometimes, you have to fail to kind of get there, get to the next stage. So you might be sitting in the workshop for 10 days and not able to figure out, and then one evening, sitting with the faculty, suddenly you'll crack the problem. So be exploratory. Somebody who has empathy for working with people, I think that's very important. At the end of the day, design is about creating things for other people to use. It's not it's not about creating for the self. So a little bit of selflessness, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely part of what we want to encourage. That we're not just designing for rich people, although certainly that's also good too. But yeah, we want to design for everyone, all populations. And this country is a country which has a lot of different populations, and we want to make sure that and regional too, by the way. Yeah. So that's another thing. I mean, we have 4 campuses. You were talking about exploration, and students sometimes they choose one campus because maybe that's where they live, or they want to they want to eventually work in that city like Bombay or something. Yeah. But we have 4 campuses, and each of them has a different regional flavor, and each of them has something maybe that another campus may not have. Yeah. As an example, Jaipur is a campus that has a strong craft and jewelry industry, and the product design students who are there, or product and accessory design students who are there, potentially they may be working more closely with in that realm of craft and particularly jewelry design. Yeah. And I think that, for example, if a student is in Delhi, who certainly you can do some aspect of jewelry within the accessory design course, but if you decide that you want a little bit more exposure, there's nothing stopping you from going, either transferring completely to the Jaipur campus, or maybe spending a semester there or a year there, in which maybe your specialization is done there to take advantage of the regional, both the industry that's there, the faculty there who may be a little bit more geared towards that because they're experienced with it. So that's something which I think I never really experienced at other places where I've taught, where you're able to kind of
move in and out.
Students can move between campuses in order to take advantage of the regional distinctions that are there between the campuses. And each campus is a whole campus on its own. It's not like this campus is any worse or better than the other. But the fact that the campuses have these regional variations, that you live in Bombay, you're going to the Bombay campus, but you want a certain kind of special a specialized learning in Jaipur campus. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And
sorry, but I've just been told that we're about to wrap up. So I think the last words, if you don't mind, can I be the closing?
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, and this comes from a recent experience of talking to an international student who wants to come and study with us. She was looking at the Bombay campus, but one of the things that she and I had a long conversation, and I was telling her this, that as a creative person, you need to bring what you love into your work. Right. So if you're passionate about music, you could be designing musical instruments. If you're passionate about dance, you could be designing product experiences that embody dance, or even, I don't know, a new form of a ghungru, I don't know. If you're passionate about pets and you love pets, your entire project could be based around that love. So I think when you come into design, I think what it offers you is that chance to bring who you are and bring that flavor of design into what you want to create. And I think maybe flavor is too light a word to use, perhaps. I think it's the thinking of design, and create what you feel the world of design needs to be for you.
That's it. I mean, I can't think of anything better than that. Great.
Right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for being part of this, and I really appreciate it. And anytime you have any questions, certainly feel free to contact us. Call our toll-free numbers that are there on our websites and all that, and you can let us know anytime that you want to know more than what we were able to say here. So thank you very, very much. Thank you, Srishti.
Thank you.